Welcome to this summary and analysis of Book 11 in the Brothers Karamazov. This book is called Brother Ivan Fyodorovich, and for sure we see the fall of this intellectual man. We can wonder what Dostoevsky is trying to tell us here. It had been 2 agonizing months since Dimitri's arrest, and while Grushenka recuperated from mental and physical exhaustion, Alyosha had grown close to her. She shared her suspicions with him that Dimitri and Katerina Ivanovna were keeping a secret from her, and maybe even falling in love. And, in turn, Alyosha promised to help her uncover the truth. As he made his way to speak to Dimitri, Alyosha stopped by Lise's house and was shocked to find her in a state of distress. She was exhausted and irritable. She lamented that she wanted to be punished by God, and then suddenly the air became tense. Before he could respond, Lise called herself a wretch and slammed the door on her own fingers, screaming for forgiveness as if punishing herself for some unseen sin. As Alyosha arrives outside the prison, he sees Rakitin, the seminarian friend of his, walking out. Alyosha questions Dimitri about his conversation with Rakitin and is stunned to learn that the seminarian hopes to compose a paper which implies that Dimitri's troubled life forced him to commit patricide. Dimitri expresses his apathy towards any radical ideas and somberly reveals that he now fully comprehends the magnitude of his transgressions and is prepared to be punished for them. The only thing that scares him is being separated from Grushenka. He fears that if they take her away from him, he won't be able to survive the years of captivity, delaying his return to redemption. Dimitri informs Alyosha that Ivan had previously been there and presented a plan of escape, believing Dimitri had killed their father. He looks into Alyosha's eyes as if searching for validation, for reassurance in himself. His brother's response fills him with newfound optimism. Alyosha affirms that he never doubted him, and with those words a wave of energy rushes through Dimitri, giving him the audacity to face whatever fate lays ahead. On parting from Dimitri, Alyosha hastens away to Katerina's apartment, where Ivan is just leaving but lingers long enough to catch Alyosha's words about his brother. Katerina is overwhelmed by emotion, requesting that Alyosha track Ivan, for she is certain he is going mad. Alyosha races to keep up with Ivan and is astonished by more revelations. Ivan informs him of a document in her hands that proves conclusively that Dimitri did indeed murder their father. Unbelieving such proof could exist, Alyosha is then asked by Ivan who the murderer is, and Alyosha answers firmly, "It wasn't you who killed father," revealing his knowledge of Ivan's self-assigned guilt. But this does not have its desired effect. Instead, Ivan is repulsed by Alyosha's spiritual mysticism and abruptly leaves him. It seems Ivan's sickness was not only aimed at Alyosha's metaphysical ramblings. It seems to have started earlier, just after his first visit to see Smerdyakov in the hospital. Smerdyakov claims his epileptic fit on the night of the crime was genuine, and understands why Ivan hastily departed for Moscow to put distance between himself and the crime scene. Ivan vows not to tell anyone that Smerdyakov can perform a sham epileptic seizure, and Smerdyakov swears in return not to divulge the conversation they have had before the fatal deed. Ivan's urgency increased with every angry step he took towards Smerdyakov's home. He demanded an explanation for insinuations of his guilt in the murder of his father. Smerdyakov reluctantly revealed how Ivan, by leaving and not speaking out, had given him the silent acceptance he needed to commit the heinous act for Ivan's own gain. So, in a passive sense, Ivan is the murderer for letting this happen, according to Smerdyakov. Consumed with guilt, Ivan stumbled to Katerina for consolation. She handed him a letter from Dimitri, which promised that for the stolen money he would be the one to do away with Fyodor. With assurance that it was Dimitri who was responsible, Ivan's pain momentarily was alleviated. The night before the trial had arrived, Smerdyakov revealed the truth, that he had been the murderer. He exposed how Ivan had used their philosophical debates to provide him with moral justification for the crime and how his absence had enabled it to happen. Ivan had been an accomplice to murder via his "everything is permitted." Ivan storms to his house determined to expose Smerdyakov's deception in court. But just as he arrives home, a sinister figure appears in front of him, dressed in fine but very worn clothes, and filled with a deep cynicism. The phantom speaks directly to Ivan's fears, taunting him until he can no longer control his rage. He hurls a cup at the intruder, and at that very moment, Alyosha pounds frantically on Ivan's window, holding the dreaded news of Smerdyakov's suicide. He hanged himself. Grief and despair shrouds Ivan as his brother steps into the house upon seeing the state of his brother. Alyosha stays behind, lovingly attending to Ivan throughout the night as he struggles with his inner demons. When analyzing book 11 of the Brothers Karamazov, called Brother Ivan Fyodorovich, we are confronted with some of the most profound insights into the human psyche that literature has to offer. At its core, this section of the novel explores the nature of guilt and redemption, and the complex interplay between these two forces in shaping our lives. This is therefore a longer summary than usual, since so many things happen here. Through the character of Dimitri, we see him consumed by guilt and jealousy, knowing he will be away from Grushenka for a long time. Meanwhile, all women can basically go to hell according to Mitya, since they are causing him only misery, which of course is not true, given his own wild adventures and foolishness. The last 2 months has turned Mitya around, where he knows he will be in chains in the mines, but there singing a hymn of love. There is still hope of a good life beyond what happens now. Through the character of Ivan, the main character in this book 11, we see the devastating effects of carrying the weight of guilt without the possibility of redemption. His beliefs that there is no higher power to forgive our sins or offer us salvation leaves him trapped in a cycle of despair and self-loathing, unable to escape the torment of his own mind. Ivan ultimately sits with brain fever talking to Satan, showing how deep he has fallen into guilt and hopelessness. If he needs to acknowledge that Satan exists, then God also exists. It's no surprise that Ivan's brain is boiling. On the other hand, we have the character of Smerdyakov, who, through a twisted sense of logic, comes to believe that he can commit any sin he wishes, as long as he doesn't get caught. This warped worldview leads him down a path of darkness, culminating in the ultimate act of betrayal, since he kills Fyodor Karamazov and then hangs himself, meaning no one can ask him about anything. First, he was introduced as a simpleton and a stupid guy, but Smerdyakov is clearly the mastermind behind it all. Now, Fyodor is gone, Mitya is in jail, Ivan is turning crazy and is overrun by guilt, and himself, Smerdyakov, he has left the world. In a shorter passage, but that is equally powerful and devilish, we see Lise's fall. Up until now, she has been a rather sweet and playful girl, teasing Alyosha and writing a love letter to him. Suddenly, she chooses pain and disorder and is called a little demon after having offered herself sexually to Ivan, who rejected. Lise has been controlled by her mother and her pain all her life, and apparently now it's time for payback. But as we have seen, becoming nihilistic is seldom the way forward, and the last thing we hear from Lise in the book is that she is inflicting pain on herself and seeing brutal images of a crucified 4-year-old in her head. This can be seen as the moral low point of the whole novel, where a young child like Lise turns to evil. I wonder where she ended up, dear child. It is ultimately through the character of Alyosha that we find a glimmer of hope. Despite the darkness that surrounds him, Alyosha remains steadfast in his belief in the power of love and forgiveness to overcome even the greatest of sins. His unwavering faith and compassion offer a ray of hope to those struggling with guilt and despair, reminding us that redemption is always possible, no matter how far we may have fallen. In conclusion, Book 11 of the Brothers Karamazov offers a powerful exploration of the human condition, delving deep into the darkest corners of the soul to reveal the complexities of guilt and redemption. Through its unforgettable characters and profound insights, this section of the novel reminds us that even in our darkest moments, there is always a path towards healing and redemption, if we only have the courage to seek it out.